All right, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll get started where everyone else does. As far as earliest childhood memories, what are we getting into?
Um, I am so glad that I got to hear this question earlier because I would have had a long like 10-minute thinking pause there. But my one of my earliest childhood memories was jumping on one of my friend's trampolines, and I tried to do a front flip and I landed on my neck. And I ended up just getting hurt and having an X-ray, and I think they they said that like some tissue in my back maybe got like torn or something. I don't know, or maybe like a pulled muscle.
Wow.
But since then, I think I landed on my neck another time in gymnastics when I was really little, like the one time I did gymnastics, and so
Yeah.
I'm just not meant to flip.
Okay. All right. Hey, that's good to learn at an early age.
Yeah, yeah,
Usually
yeah.
before a wedding, I'm always like, "Oh, I'm gonna learn how to do a backflip. It's gonna be super cool whenever we get that circle going." And
Yeah.
we had two weddings coming up, and I'm like looking at tutorials, I'm like, "I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it." Like, I'll do it later. There'll be another wedding. We'll do it later.
So have you done the backflip like
No, no,
successfully
no.
before
I've
at
done
all?
a backflip into a pool like multiple times. Like I got over it. I can do it the one time, but on land, not so much. There's still the one, two, three. We can do that later.
I think that when you're younger, you're like stupid enough to be like,
Oh yeah,
I'll do it. But
for
as we
sure.
get older, there's some hindrances in our mind.
Yeah, there was a time in high school where I this might have even been from The Office, but I didn't watch The Office, but everyone's like, "Oh, let's start doing parkour." Like that became like a cool thing. So me and my buddies would walk around town like, "Ooh, let's try to climb up that." Like there was no like cool courses or anything to do, but we just like failed while climbing up walls or like jumping on curbs and stuff. It's like we are in the Midwest here. There's not a lot of cool architecture, other
Mhm.
than if we go to the city, we're like, oh, I can climb that, but we couldn't. Um, but anyway, I'm just remembering all these really cool things I used to do.
Yeah.
So when you were younger, did you play a lot of sports? Were you more interested in school? What did elementary school look like?
Elementary school, man. I was always like an athlete, just loved sports, loved competing. I love games, like even just like board games. Like I could play board games for hours and I'd be
Yeah.
happy. But I was doing, I did soccer, I did tennis, a bunch of different sports. And then in my sister, she's 2 years older than me, was playing volleyball. And so I ended up getting into volleyball through her.
Mm.
I ended up playing club volleyball and club soccer in sixth grade. And then
Wow, that's
my
young.
mom, yeah, my mom was like, we are not doing two sports at the same time. Like, so I had to pick between the two. And volleyball is such an addictive sport. I immediately fell in love with it. And then I
Yeah.
just ran with it from there on out.
How does that conversation go with a sixth grader? What is that? What's your mom coming to you with here?
I would be curious to ask her what the conversation was because honestly, I don't really remember any specifics. Like, I don't even remember there being a conversation at all. I think
Yeah.
it's more so like what I've heard from my parents saying that, like, yeah, we were doing this, it was too much. And then there was the decision to go with volleyball.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that I got to choose that, but I don't really. I feel like a lot of my childhood is like there's like some feelings that I have, but
Yeah.
not a lot of like memories and things that really like stick out. You know?
Yeah. I always go back and I'm like, "Hey mom, what was this like?" And whatever I thought was like perfectly clear, she's like, "No, that wasn't it." And
Yeah.
I there was I like myself wanted to play every sport possible, and my
Mhm.
mom just straight up, it was probably like 5 or 10 years ago, was like, "Yeah, swimming, I would have had to get up early at like 5 a.m. for you to do swim lessons. There was no chance of that happening." And now, like, she gets up at 5:15 to work out, and I'm like, "Come on, mom! Like, you could have done it. You were just raising me on your own. It was fine."
So did you have like an option to do swimming, or do you remember it as like I didn't want to do swimming?
We did swimming, or we had swimming in the summer, which was really fun. I mean, I liked any sport that I was doing, except for
Mhm.
baseball. It was boring as can be. My dad was furious. Like he was one of the coaches. He loved baseball. He excelled at it. I sat down in the outfield. I'm like, I got ADHD. Like this ain't it. Like
I think more.
this is
Yeah.
not working for me. Like whenever we would play catch, but when it would come to a game or like it wasn't my turn in the drill, like no, this ain't working.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't
but
understand.
yeah, big fan of sports. So
Yeah.
as volleyball goes, I feel like coordination wise and skill wise, it's not very beginner friendly because
Mm.
there's a big net. Like and when you're in sixth grade, um, what does that look like for you?
I just had a conversation with someone about this the other day, but like I was doing a jump serve in sixth grade. And
No.
like, yeah, I was pretty like, I was just very like athletic and started like my sister was older, so I started young.
Mhm.
Because I just kind of played with her. And so um I was always like a little bit farther than my peers, so I always
Yeah.
got to play with like older levels to be
Oh,
able to
nice.
compete at higher levels. And so, but when I was in middle school, or I guess you say elementary, but like going into middle school when you actually have like the sports teams at
Right.
your school was when I would be playing with my peers. So I guess maybe not sixth grade, but seventh and eighth grade, I was doing
Yeah.
like a float serve. And at that point, it's like if you can just get the ball over the net, you're going to win. So
Yeah.
was fun. But we actually, as part of the conversation I was having was that we had these knee high socks that had flames on them,
Oh,
and we would
nice.
have this like ace cheer where we'd be like, like burning on our socks or whatever. I don't know, but like the little cheers that you have at that
Yeah.
age are just so precious.
That's fantastic. I was watching probably an Instagram reel at some point, um,
Hmm.
but they had different colored shirts for kids, and how they would play is they would catch the ball and then they would go and set it. So I think it was like you had to, it was just a development scheme
Hmm.
because at younger ages, I feel like it's really tough to even just like bump or set or even hit the
Yeah.
ball. So I think
Yeah.
getting as many reps in as you can, as opposed to just going to a game and being like, I hope it goes over at some point in this game.
Yeah, yeah, giving them like different goals. That would be very helpful and just create like a different kind of game for them until they can play
Yes.
that. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with what you said earlier with it being like this heavy transition to playing volleyball is like very hard when you're younger or even if
Yeah.
you're older and you're trying to learn like it's there's a heavy barrier to entry in regards to like understanding the skills to do it.
Right.
um, and so yeah, it's definitely someone mentioned it was more beach volleyball, but that it's more so like an elitist sport because it's like you have to be able to have access to it to be able to even play it in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think that's why pickleball is so big right now.
Yeah. I love
Low
pickleball.
low barrier entry, but I absolutely still play. It's very fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're in sixth grade playing with your sister, and in school, are you just interested in sports? Do you like academics? What's that looking like?
Um, I I enjoyed academics. I think it depended also on like the teachers, if your teachers are interested. I was always very like strong with math.
Okay.
Math always made sense to me because it's very like black and white and
Right.
like this is the answer. And then I remember having chemistry in high school and being like really annoyed with it because it's like, okay, this is the answer that I got. But then it's like, oh, well, because it was this temperature at this elevation or whatever it was, now you have this different outcome. And
Yeah.
I never liked the like fluid answers. I just wanted it to be like, this is what this is, or like, these are the rules, and I go with
Yes.
those rules, and it's simple. So trying to think of like any other uh things in regards to like studying. My sister, I just have the one. She is a very hard worker, and I am a very efficient worker. Like I'm very like
You
I'm
could
that
just
person
say you're
like
smarter. That's fine. That's what.
no, but like I'm very lazy. Like I'm very
Yes.
lazy. Because I'm lazy, I have to be smart, you know?
Absolutely. So with playing in club volleyball, is that year round? Do you miss out on vacations? What does it look outside of
Hmm.
that?
I would say year round. There's like your school season that you have, and then you have club. I do wish that it could have been that it wasn't so like encompassing of your life at that young
Yeah.
of an age. Like it would have been fun to try like softball out, or I wouldn't have done basketball. I'm not a basketball person, but like other sports, like I would have
Yeah.
enjoyed, and it would have been cool to have that understanding now as an adult and like go and play in like leagues and stuff like that. But in regards to like going on vacations, we didn't really go on a lot of vacations, I would say. But yeah, I don't know. I don't remember there being any like I can't go, at least at the high school age,
Yeah.
elementary age. Like there was no sports didn't really control if I went somewhere with my family or not. More so
Yeah.
in college it did. Yeah.
Okay. So it's we'll go middle school, high school. Um, I feel like, especially for women in sports,
Mm.
uh, how is it dealing with girls in the volleyball uniform? I feel like it's not a very forgiving uniform, and neither are middle school or high school girls. So,
Mm.
how
Yeah.
was that process for you?
Um, I think that I didn't put much thought into the uniform personally. But I do have friends that I've talked with that did have issues with it in high school. Like, I have a friend who, to just put it blatantly, like she had a really big butt,
Yeah.
and she still does. But like she talked about in high school, like she would just get like reprimanded and like slut shamed essentially by like parents, by coaches, by other players for her butt falling out of the spandex, and like she hated that.
Yeah.
She to this day like does she hates wearing short shorts. Like she wants to wear like the long biker shorts, but that wasn't an option, which I think
Right.
is really interesting in perspective. I could see where someone from the outside would be like, oh, this little teenage girl just wants to show off her butt. And it's like, in reality, like, no, she doesn't want that. Like, we don't want that attention, which I think as a whole, it also reflects this is a little bit sidestepping
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
question, but now I get very, very frustrated anytime there's like any videos of a woman playing volleyball and it's sexualized in any way,
Yeah.
because the sport is such an amazing, awesome, cool sport. And it's one of those sports where like women get to finally be like the center of attention for a sport because we
Yeah.
don't those platforms. And then all of a sudden it's like now you want to discredit this awesome sport that we're playing by just being like, oh, it's just because she's wearing spandex. That's why I want to go watch this game. And
Yeah.
it's just really frustrating because it's like, okay, it's actually like a cool sport and we're actually like good athletes playing this sport. Um, but yeah, I guess circling back to your question, I never felt a certain way about the uniforms, but I also, I guess, like skipping forward to the future,
No,
and
you're
now
good.
I have this volleyball company, and
Yeah.
I've been asking a lot of athletes about uniforms because at some point I want to create uniforms. And for the women specifically, like I want women to be able to focus on playing and not how they look.
Right.
And so I've been talking to some athletes. There was like a beach college player who played, and she was talking about how like the tank tops that they wear are like skin tight, and some girls have body dysmorphia and like do not want to wear those and stuff like that. So taking that into account when creating uniforms for women. Yeah.
So, as far as going back to your friend that would be slut shamed or be like, "Hey, what's going on here?" Is that something that was to her face? Did you guys just hear it in the background? Like, what was the scenario on that?
Mhm. I didn't go to school with her, so this is
Okay,
something we've talked about as adults.
gotcha.
Um, but I I don't know if maybe I could see like her coach maybe being like, pull down your spandex or something like
Yeah,
that. Like, but I think I remember her kind of mentioning that like she wanted to wear the other shorts, but that she just wasn't allowed to, which I think
gotcha.
is so weird. It's like as long as it just matches the color of what everybody else is wearing, why does it matter?
Right.
Um,
Well, I think it's interesting when I started uh dating my wife.
mhm,
Man, how old am I? 10 years ago. She
mhm,
don't listen. We'll say 10-ish years ago. We went our first vacation we went on, we went to Cabo. She wore
mhm.
the string bikinis or whatever they were. And then we
Yeah,
were going on a vacation with my family and she has the same bikinis. I'm like, "Oh, hey, like we're a respectable family." Like never really having this conversation and just thinking like this is what you're supposed to do. I'm like, what? Why are you doing that? And she's like, well, why is it disrespectful? I was like, oh, you're just showing a lot of skin. I'm like, well, like, I'm like me not actually having an intelligent conversation about it beforehand. I'm like,
yeah,
isn't that wrong? Are you trying to sexualize it? She's like, I feel comfortable. Like, I'll wear
mhm,
these short jeans just because I feel comfortable and I feel like I look good. She's
yeah,
also a very confident woman.
yeah,
But it's very interesting why uh I still know a lot of people that have the views of it's a negative thing for a woman to either be confident or for just the way she looks.
yeah,
Where do you think that comes from? Because I may have had some arguments in the past with friends.
yeah. Bare middle.
So like from your perspective, where do you think the shame comes into? Because for me,
Mm,
I was just I don't know where it came from, but I just had the idea of a woman showing off her body was not respectful. So like for
yeah.
you, where do you feel like it entered in your life?
I first of all, I thank you for asking me this question
Yeah.
because it's something that I have actually put a lot of thought into. But it's not a conversation that you just like get to normally have. And
Right.
so
Very
I'm
true.
grateful for like this and this platform to get to talk about
Yeah.
it. There's a few different layers to it. One of the layers is that it comes down to culture and what we're
Mhm.
used to. And I think that living in different areas and being around different cultures truly gives you that perspective of like,
Okay.
maybe this isn't as black and white as I think it is. Like my moral, you might think that like your morals are just your own and like naturally what should happen, but in reality, it's the culture that you grew up in.
Okay.
Um, in the same sense of like you could go to a different country and women aren't wearing anything on top, or you go to a country and women have to literally cover their hair,
Mhm.
everything, and like and if you get that perspective, it's like you realize that maybe the way that you are seeing it isn't actually is just what you've been raised around and what you're comfortable with. Um, so I think going into I have this belief that dress codes when we're younger are a really big part of uh is a heavy word, but I think they're a very big part of rape culture.
Okay.
Because we have put so much focus on girls, you have to cover up because you are going to distract boys
Yeah.
with your body and your skin, rather than, hey boys, you have these chemicals in your brain that truly impact like how you think and feel, because naturally you want to procreate, that's totally fine, but that is on you to learn how to understand how to control those feelings. In the same way as it is when I'm on my period, I need to recognize that I don't just get to go and scream at every person I'm around. Like, it is my job to understand,
Right.
hey, my emotions are a little out of check. Like, I need to take a breather, because that's my responsibility. And the same that it's a man's responsibility to take control of his own emotions rather than placing that on a girl. And I think that would be extremely beneficial as a whole if it was like if little boys were raised to not be so easily swayed by those emotions. I think we're both at a disadvantage. I don't think like stop sexualizing women, blah blah blah, the patriarchy. Like I just think that we would both benefit from it.
Well, it's very interesting for the I've never understood the argument she's asking for it just because I wasn't I won't necessarily say I was raised to respect uh to fear women. I don't know the I think I was raised regularly. Like my mom, like my parents got divorced. My mom raised me for majority of the time, but like there was never this sexualizing a woman. I just never those things never entered my mind, so I was really confused with that
Yeah.
statement. But I feel like you said that would be wonderful if there was a class like sex ed. I feel like just teaches how things happen, not like what to do in those types of situation. But it's a very interesting argument she was asking for it. I feel like that's a rough one to run with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that uh I think that's a sad statement for a person
Yeah.
to have. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah, definitely.
I'm trying to see where, like, for me, I got a lot of my stuff growing up from like either TV shows or movies or like hanging out with family. Like my family, we were very bland. Like we were like there was not a lot of exciting things going on. I didn't go out and party. I didn't see a lot of things till after high school. So maybe that's why I missed out on some of those cultural things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for you, what was your high school career like, just in general, of friends and whatnot?
Like oh gosh.
That's a big question.
Yeah, like it's broad, but I'm happy to answer it. I I always kind of hung out with people that were older than me, more like a few years older. And so I would hang out with them in high school, and then once they graduated, then it got like a little uncomfortable because I didn't really have like this friendship developed with my peers in my age group, which
Yeah.
uh, I think is a good and a bad thing. I'm glad that I had the friends that I had at the time, and um, high school. It's so weird. I just feel like my high school and like my schooling in general, like I don't have a lot of emotional connection to it.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't really like I didn't grow up with the same people in elementary to middle to high school. I went to like an elementary school that was normal year round, and then I switched to I forget what it's called, but a different elementary school that like was they had like different breaks during the year. So then my parents like we could do it just had to do with the breaks and like what time we could spend with my family. And then I went back to the original school,
What was
and then
that for? What was that? What was the breaks? Is that so you could have like 4 day school weeks, or what was the
the normal week was the same, but it
okay.
was more so of like instead of I might be saying this wrong, but instead of like a really long winter or summer break,
Yeah.
it's broken out into different periods.
Okay.
So it's not your traditional like those winter summer breaks that you
And
have.
what was the school's reasoning behind that? Was that like a preparatory school or it was just a different school?
It was like a normal elementary school, but it was just called honestly, I don't really even know. I just know that it was like rather than being or maybe it was like a year-round school or there's a certain term for it, but I couldn't
Yeah.
really tell you because I haven't
That's right.
really
I won't
oh,
fact check you.
I'm curious.
That was a ways back.
Yeah.
With playing so much volleyball, what did your diet look like?
Oh man. I never they have these videos on social media where it'll be like older athletes or trainers or something being like, if you want to be a D1 athlete, like you need to be working out now, you need to be eating good. Like they're like it's like these young kids are like taking it so seriously and are like, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm going D1. Um, I never really put much thought. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad worked and
yeah,
she was such a good cook and like we had very healthy food, but like it was always home cooked meals
yeah,
and and different dishes. I always really loved going out to eat because we never got to.
yeah.
Um, so I love like I would have like two Big Macs. Like I would like
Oh,
just really put down some food. I loved McDonald's growing up. But like I know that in hindsight that's not great for you. But I never really put a lot of thought into my diet and even plain like I still to this day I play my best when I eat a burger.
there you go. So the reason why I give a thumbs down for the social media thing is because they're trying to sell you something, and I know lots of D1 athletes, my cousin included, that he grew up on hot dogs and ketchup and Purdue chicken nuggets, and he still went D1. Like he
Yeah,
just started learning what protein was like his junior or senior year. Like he
yeah.
was fine. He was a string bean. He was good.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as the eating went, do you feel like you had a healthy relationship with food since your mom was cooking so much of it? And then when you went out, you're like, hey, like I get to enjoy the food for it.
Yes, yeah, my relationship with food has always been fine,
Yeah,
until more so now, this transition, which I like yesterday had this realization. I don't know if this is obvious, but it wasn't obvious to me, but like your metabolism when you're younger obviously is very fast, especially as an athlete.
yeah,
And so you eat to provide for your body whatever your body is telling you it needs.
yeah,
So you eat that amount. And then after college, then all of a sudden your metabolism slows down. You're getting older. You're more of a woman now. And you're still feeding yourself in the same way that you had for the prior like 20 years.
yeah,
So, like, this transition of like, oh, wait, my metabolism is slowing down. Your body changes, but your brain doesn't, your mind doesn't feed yourself differently.
right.
Until recently, I was like, eating like where I would have put down two Big Macs, like I would probably eat half of a Big Mac and be like, I am so full right now. Like I
Yeah,
cannot imagine eating more. And I'm like, wait, is that what I'm actually supposed to be eating now? Like,
yeah,
am I supposed to eat that much? And it's just a weird realization of like, you didn't just gain weight because your metabolism slowed down. You gained weight because you had no idea you were supposed to switch how much you were eating.
yeah. Well, and I think it's very interesting. Uh, the I think your metabolism changes. New York Times had something like 3 years ago. I think it was your
Mhm.
metabolism changes like 5 to 7 times in your lifetime, and I think it was from 20 to 55 or whatever it was fairly similar. But
Mhm.
us as I would just say Americans, we just generally do less.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
like for myself, I was like, oh no, I can eat what I used to. But in high school, I would wake up for cross country. I would go to tennis camp, then have basketball, then have soccer, and then do another thing
Mhm.
on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Like we did a lot more back then.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think it's hard for our brain to be like, just like you said, just one burger? What is this? I used to put down two or three. Uh,
Yeah.
so when we're in high school, and your mom's doing all the cooking at home, do you cook with her at all? Does she talk to you about this is kind of why I like to cook, or what was the vibe
Mhm.
there?
My sister was always the one that enjoyed cooking with my mom, and I never did. I just remember coming home and like being really hungry, but we would always have to wait until my dad got home. So I'd have to wait like several hours before I could eat. And
Oh
my mom
no.
we had the pantry where it's like they have like the videos where it's like, hey, like mom, I'm hungry. And then the mom's like, go get yourself some food. Like we have plenty of food. And like the food is just ingredients
The
for things.
food.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, so I just remember like always being hungry all the time and having to wait.
Yeah.
And you just kind of do like homework and stuff until my dad came home, and then we'd have some dinner, family time, and then go to bed.
Yeah.
But yeah, my sister was always the one a lot more involved in cooking. I love cooking now.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I'm not like I said, my sister's the hard worker, and I'll go get something out to eat. Like, yeah.
Sure. Before we move on to the college stuff, do you have any fond memories of when you were living at home in high school?
Mm. I remember like passing a ball against the wall that we had. I'm glad that my parents were okay with me doing that, but we had this like little like hallway sort of thing, and then
Yeah.
like up above this door, our front door, there was just like the plain wall, and I just would like serve the ball at the wall and then pass it to myself, or just continuously pass or set against it, and I'd practice like my serve and I'd serve against that wall. And it actually, going back to kind of what we were talking about before of like the gurus online being like, you need to eat well if you want to go D1. I think it's interesting because they talk about like how much work goes into it. And like
Yeah.
for me, it was never work. Like it was like an addiction. It was
Right.
fun. Like I wanted to feel the ball like passing on my platform when I was doing it, and like I would dream of like these volleyball plays and stuff like that. So it was never like it shouldn't be. I don't know. I don't love the idea of it being a chore to get to that level. Like it's not a job. Like you shouldn't be like playing volleyball shouldn't be a job in high school to
Yeah.
get D1, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that's probably one of my most fond memories in high school.
So going through high school to college, how do you figure out which school you're going to go to? Are colleges recruiting you? Do you want to go to a specific place?
hmm I actually I was not going to be playing my 18s year of uh, club, and that's when you mainly get recruited
Okay.
because I was going to need to get a full ride scholarship to go anywhere,
Gotcha.
because otherwise I'd be able to go to the local college, which is UNR here
Hmm.
in Nevada. And because we were local to Nevada, you get like a certain discount. So it was going to be like very cheap to go to a good college. So basically my parents were like, you're not going to get like the chances of you getting a full ride anywhere versus us just saving the money from that 18 year of club, which is,
Gotcha.
I don't even know, maybe $6,000-7,000. Um,
Woo!
yeah, instead of that, then we're going to put that towards your college. So, I mean, I don't blame them. I definitely understand it.
Yeah.
Um, so I was going to be doing that, but my club was like, no, we want, like, you need to be playing this year. So they paid for my entire season. Yeah,
Hello.
got sponsored by the club. Shout out NNJ to play my 18s year. And then I ended up getting recruited, which a big part of getting recruited is, yes, you can be very good, but I think a lot of it is like just connections that people have. And like just the opportunities that kind of end up being linked in with that. Like you can increase your chance of that opportunity by putting yourself out there, doing a bunch of film, reaching out to a bunch of coaches. But like one of the coaches there knew another coach at a D1 program who was looking for girls, and then they ended up connecting. And I hopped on a phone call with him after I think one or two calls,
Yeah.
and he offered me a full ride, and that was a very, very cool phone call because it was just this thing that I was never going to be able to get, and
Yeah.
then it all of a sudden like everything turned around, and it was like, wow, I get to go across the country, which is something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
and play for a D1 program with a full ride.
So how do you celebrate at what after you get that call? What's the emotions that are going on?
I was like, I probably went to McDonald's. um, I just remember calling my dad after that because he was like the main person who was like, "You're not going to be able to get a full ride." So I called my dad, and my dad had this thing where like whenever we would get like really good grades on a test or in class or something successful, then he'd be like, "Let's go out and celebrate. We're gonna go to McDonald's or we're
Yeah.
gonna go to Wendy's or something," which is I think also part of my relationship with fast food.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was probably how we celebrated.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. And what were you feeling on the inside, having thought that you were going to be staying local?
Um, honestly, I don't really remember. I don't remember having like any emotions about. I had just been so eager to. I'm the youngest child. So that's something I've learned is like we just kind of want to go and do our own thing. And I guess the oldest child, I didn't know this until recently, but like they feel like they have to take care of everyone in the
Yeah.
family. But being the youngest, I'm like, screw everyone. I want to
Yep.
leave.
Let's go. So, what was that the first time that you were living on your own for an extended period of time?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was.
What
Hmm.
what was the first roommate experience like? Were you with another volleyball athlete or was it a rough ride?
Yeah, so when you first show up, volleyball is a fall sport. So you have preseason in the summer before. So we showed up before any other students showed up, along with the other sports that were in that season.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know, football, tennis, maybe. Um, so we were there. And so I got introduced to the school and the area before like going into classes, which is nice. But then you go into like preseason and hell week. And my first roommate, all of basically for us specifically, like all the roommates normally end up being like your teammates.
Okay.
Um, and so, and a lot of the athletes, like as a whole for our school, we didn't really like associate with other students very much because you're just like so enveloped into athletics and what you're
Yeah.
doing there. And so I had a teammate who was a horrible roommate and a horrible teammate at the time who is now one of my best friends.
Hey, it worked out.
But I think we were roommates for, I don't know if it was like that first year or the first like half of the year. But I ended up switching. I don't necessarily remember why, probably because we hated each other. I'm not sure.
Was she just unclean? Was she stealing your boyfriends? What was she doing?
um, we our freshman class, my freshman class, we were the first recruited class from the coach that we had.
Okay.
This was his first year. He was signed on for 3 years. And he basically came, my understanding of things is that he came into things with the girls who were there before and basically was like, these girls are going to take all of your spots and you have a lot of competition coming in. And I think his intention was to like really get them going and to make
Right.
them like want to work hard. And instead it made them hate us. And so I ended up being roommated with one of those players that was like, screw this freshman class. Like they
Thanks,
think they're
coach.
nuts. Yeah. Set up for failure there, but
Yeah. So you mentioned Hell Week. What does that look like in volleyball terms?
it depends on the coach.
Okay.
I that roommate who's now my best friend actually became a U.S. Marshal,
Okay.
and she went through some like very heavy training for that. And
Yeah.
she said that our preseason was worse than that training. To put it into perspective, I guess it's definitely not enjoyable. I never puked, but
Yeah.
there was a lot of crying. Not for me, but I do cry when I play, but it's or had in the past, but it's only when I'm like disappointing my
Yeah.
coach and myself.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, it's definitely like just I think we would like wake up at 5, work out with our strength and conditioning coach, and then we would go get breakfast or whatever, and then go and do PT, and then have practice for several hours, and then do conditioning, and then do practice for several hours, and that would be the end of the day. Um,
Do you feel like that was a net positive as far as your like physical and mental like improvement on the game?
uh, I think specifically for us and our team, no,
Okay.
but for a college program, yes. Like
What's the difference?
I think that if our like for example, like you have your strength and conditioning program that you have,
Yeah,
and then you go into these practices, and these practices are conditioning having nothing to do with volleyball. So
gotcha.
it's like why am I here to be on the track team, or am I here to play volleyball? Because like I get that like you want to be in shape and fit, but like in perspective for me now,
Yeah.
I would be like you play 5 games in a whole match. Like it's like a 2 hour long game. You really don't need like that much cardio
Hmm.
to be like you need to be a good volleyball player before you need to be a good sprinter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
I had the uh if you follow rugby at all, the New Zealand All Blacks, their strength and conditioning coach on, and he coached all levels up until
mhm,
there. He was with them during one of their big runs. And he's
yeah.
like, yeah, my job here at this point is to make sure that they can excel at practice, at their sport.
Mm,
So I didn't know at the college level if the strength and conditioning coach was saying, "Hey, like I want to improve your vertical to this point, or I want to improve your serve to this point, or your reaction time." Like, what type
mm.
of metrics were they using to see improvement for you guys as athletes?
Yeah, we would. I think our strength and conditioning coach was awesome.
Yeah,
He did a really great job of like giving us specific workouts for volleyball. At the start of each season, we would test our vert, like your standing jump, then your approach jump. We would test like sprints, and we would test I forgot what it's called, like a something run where you like go like cone to cone back and forth.
hmm
Um, Times stuff like that. We didn't do any like long distance testing, which
yeah,
I'm glad that we didn't. My understanding is that like that would hurt you
yeah,
to like do long distance stuff. But so we tested that, and then we would do a lot of like um it would be like different every week, but he'd progress us really well. Like we'd have some times you'd go and like we'd figure out what all of our maxes are, and then we would get like percentages of the max for
yeah,
that workout, and then you'd get like a certain amount of reps, and then he would have us do like stuff to like take care of our shoulders, and just to we would do like reaction drills. So he'd like throw a tennis ball, and we'd have to
yeah.
like react to the tennis ball, stuff like that. So I think that program as a whole was like he did a really, really great job with that. Yeah.
That's great. And for all the women listening that are afraid of lifting heavy weights and getting big, was that an issue for you, or was it helping you in your sport?
Well, I was going to school in Texas, so like it's like sexy to be like thick, you
Yeah,
know? And so there was never any it was like the girls who were like thick were like the
yeah,
like you wanted to be that or whatever. So and I felt like for our team specifically, I felt like there was more competition for strength and like who
yeah,
could lift the best or do the most pull-ups or push-ups, whatever it was.
yeah.
So I'm really thankful for that. There was a side of it. I didn't personally experience it, but like we had a few teammates who were toxic and would like make comments about cellulite or whatever. But I think more if that comes from like that internal feeling for
Oh,
that
100,
person. you know?
100%.
And so, but I personally didn't have issues with that. But I do remember um, thinking that I wasn't. I remember going home, and my sister and I used to share clothing.
Yeah.
And I came home, and like we were sitting on the countertop or whatever it was, and I looked at my thighs, and her thighs were like this big, and mine were like 3 times her
Yeah.
size. Um, but looking back at pictures of myself, like I was very strong, but I was not like
Yeah.
out of shape by any means. I was very,
Mhm.
very in shape. Yeah.
So freshman year, what position do you go in there playing, and then do you stay at that position? Does coach move you around? What are we there?
I got recruited as an outside.
Okay.
I actually ended up getting, I call it the yips, but I've learned that a lot of people call it not freezing, but it's like getting like a mental block, where you just like can't, your body just like won't, your body knows what to do, but your mind won't let it do it. It's
Okay.
almost like you're stuck in this like fight or flight moment. And I think that I thought that it was because of the transition from high school to college is tough. Like you're, especially at the D1 level, like you are in high school, like you're like the star of your team.
Right.
And now you take that player and you put them in this pool of all the star players and now these older girls who have been in college, and like you can't, you're nothing. Like
Yeah.
you're just like, it's just something you've never experienced before. And so I think it's extremely important to have like your teammates be very uplifting and kind to you in that
Yeah.
period of time, which we did not have. And so I think there were also a lot of layers for me with the transition. And so I ended up getting stuck in this fight or flight mode for pretty much all 4 years. And so I went from outside to basically just riding the bench for four
Mhm.
years.
What was the conversations you were having with yourself at that point? Are you journaling? Are you talking to family? Where is that going?
I was not journaling. I was not really talking to family. I was just drinking a lot, partying a lot on the weekends.
Yeah.
I was pretty like miserable through. I really just like blacked out a lot of the 4 years, because it just was very hard to, there was a lot of like emotional abuse that happened throughout the 4 years. And so you end up just kind of like mentally shutting down and looking forward to like the next moment where you can feel good, which for me was when I could party and hang out with friends.
Yeah.
Um, and so there weren't a lot of, I guess, like in I'm trying to think of like conversations in my head. I didn't really have, I don't have any memory of what I was saying to myself until after college, when I was bartending and not taking good care of myself. And like the internal voice was just like, it was mean. It was very mean.
Mhm.
But in college, I don't know. I don't think I had any like internal thoughts. I can't think, there's nothing that sticks out to me
What
with that.
was the abuse at practice? Was it from other players, coaching staff? Where was that coming from?
It's hard to talk about because the word abuse means something different to a lot of people. And it's very like emotional abuse is very hard to identify because like physical
Yeah.
abuse, I can just tell you like, yeah, I got punched in the face. Like
Right.
I did get punched in the face, but that would be a lot easier to tell you.
Yeah.
But um, I think that when you are getting like yelled at for making mistakes when you're really trying to do like your best, and you like are playing and you're practicing and you're serving, and it's like if you make any errors at all you just get like ripped into, and like basically told that like you, it's almost like you like intended to make that mistake. And you end up turning into like a very small person where anything that you're going to do, anything you do, you're just going to get yelled at, and you're just going to get like kind of mentally like put into a corner. So like
Yeah.
you just can't say anything, you can't do anything right. You just get yelled at no matter what you do.
Mhm.
So you end up just kind of being like very scared all the time.
What was there a point at which you wanted to drop out or leave?
I had a full ride, so there
Okay.
was never any. I was just gonna like get through it. Like it was
Yeah.
just okay. Here's the ending point. There
Yeah.
was always like the next ending point I was looking forward to,
Gotcha.
um, and so hence a lot of like blacking out was just like zoning out through a period of time until I could reach this point where I would be able to like
Gotcha.
get out of it.
What were you studying at school? Like what were your next steps?
I was doing marketing. I always wanted to do advertising. I
Okay.
love psychology and understanding how people think. And I actually was going to do, I had the option to be a GA and get my master's in, I was going to be an athletic psychologist. I
Okay.
forget, like I'm sure there's like a name for it, but I wanted to like help the person that I was in
Right.
college. I wanted to be able to sit down with athletes and help them be the best athlete they could
Yeah.
be. But my dad was like, "You're not going to make any money doing that, and like your life is going to be really hard if you go that route." So I ended up switching and doing advertising because that was kind of my way of going
Yeah.
that route and doing that. Yeah.
Was there any particular advertising technique or guerrilla marketing or thing that you remember like, hey, that was really cool?
I've always appreciated Nike
Okay.
and the brand that it is, in a sense of like it truly creates like a feeling for people.
Yeah.
You could have a t-shirt that's like an amazing material and all black and like just a really great t-shirt, and then you could have like a really crappy t-shirt but it's a Nike t-shirt, and like that would be chosen because I'm not saying that they are crappy t-shirts, but like in comparison,
Yeah.
people are just drawn to the what the brand represents for them.
Yes.
And I'm sure there's like several other commercials that really stuck out to me over time. But that's something I just really respect the creation of a brand and
Yeah.
not necessarily like just simply a product or a cheap product that can just
Yeah.
fill a space.
For sure. We'll move on from the topic I'm going to ask a question about, but it's in my head.
Yeah.
What would have needed to happen at a practice for the yelling or just the how things were going? Would there need to be another coach there to go and say like, "Hey, like what are we doing here?" Like what would have been the situation that you think something would have changed?
Um, I think just a full new coaching staff,
Okay.
and because the assistants were not the well, uh,
You weren't it.
um, yeah, I just think I think a person um doesn't have like ill will. Like they're not like, oh yeah, I want to make them hate their lives and be miserable. Like
Right.
that's not. And so it's just more so of like not being a necessarily like healthy person yourself. And
Yeah.
so I think like that person being in leadership, then it kind of like affects everybody else below. That coach ended up getting fired, and we had a different coach who was the assistant. She ended up getting the head role, and like she was a lot worse. I would
Oh
definitely pick it
no.
her if I could. She was mean. She was really mean. But
Do you think that she had a point to prove? Do you think that's just the only way she thought she could coach? What do you think her angle was?
I think that there's two different kinds of people in life. I think there's people who experience trauma and they never want anyone to feel that way. And
Yeah,
I think there's people who experience trauma and they want other people to experience what they went through.
gotcha.
And she was the latter, I would
Okay.
say.
I
Um,
walked to school through snow uphill both ways, so now you have to.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
an
But it was
informed
like,
car.
I never want you to do that. Like, I will be driving. Like, yeah, yeah, exactly.
Got it.
So I forgot what else I was gonna say about that. Yeah, I think like a whole new coaching staff and like a person in the leadership position that like truly, which is I think would be a very rare coach to find someone who truly understood like how to coach a team that was like just a good like mentally healthy volleyball team.
Yeah, I think we should go back to the school where we have mental health classes where they actually help.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they teach you how to go to other people and say, "Hey, this person isn't working out for us. How do we fix this?"
yeah. I
We
actually my sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
you're great.
My senior year, it was actually recommended to me to go and see a therapist. I was having this was when we had the female coach. I was having so much anxiety before our practices. I wanted to vomit. Like I wanted to literally go into the bathroom and make myself vomit because I felt so like sick and just so anxious because
Yeah.
her practices would be so brutal. Like she just the power that you have when you're a coach, like she would just tell us to run and be like, I'll tell you when to stop when I want to.
Oh,
Like it
good
just
coaching. Thanks.
I'm just gonna tell you to run. Like and it's just like little things like that. And so like you're in such a subjected position as a player. Like you have to do whatever they say.
Yeah.
Like I remember when she first got the position, she was like, you guys need to like there's stuff on your social media accounts that we do not approve of, like you need to go through and delete whatever you think it would be, and if you miss anything you will be running in practice, and like so it's like but you have no idea what they're even like
Right.
upset. It's like if we had like a picture of us in a bikini we had to take that off, which going back to the start of our conversation is like
Yeah.
why do you even I don't know, because you represent the school. But uh I forgot where I was going with that.
What would have fixed it? Just a big swooping change.
A swooping change. Yes.
So
Yeah.
going from college to bartending, what was the movement there?
Um, so I was in Beaumont, Texas for college, which is like an hour from Louisiana, very southeast
Okay.
Texas. And then I went to Dallas, Texas, which is like the closest biggest one of the closest biggest cities to it. Houston's a little bit closer, but um I because I wanted to be in a big city to pursue advertising.
Hmm.
Um, and I basically did that for a year. I bartended at this place called Three Forks, which is like one of the fanciest restaurants in Dallas. It was a really, really cool experience. I got to
Yeah.
have like some of the nicest bourbons and whiskeys and tequilas and steak. Like it was a very, very cool experience. I'm very thankful for. Um, and then I ended up getting an internship with an advertising agency. I did that. And then I decided to move home after,
Yeah.
back to Reno, Nevada, because I just, I don't know, like things weren't really working out there. And I just wanted to touch home base, but I was really worried about like moving backwards in life. As I've like talked to a few other people, I think other people feel the same way about moving back home with your parents.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but I'm really thankful that I did, because once I did, I got a job at an advertising agency here um, in Reno. And basically everything just like fell into place for me once I came back to Reno.
What uh what was the first time you picked up a volleyball after college?
Throughout college, I would come back for summer and winter breaks and I would play grass volleyball here.
Oh, okay.
And I would like be able to play again. Like I went from like um trying to put like I don't know if you know the terminology of I was curious actually what your background with volleyball is.
So I started playing with my now wife like 7 or 8 years ago, or when we started dating, so maybe a little bit longer. It was just in a beer league.
Nice.
I'm very competitive. I had no idea what I was doing. and it was in sand. And then after like 2 or 3 years, kind of in like the rec stuff, I'm just like rolling everything because I didn't know how to jump, like just in general, how to approach. I was in sand. I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And then my wife got pregnant, and then I got asked to play on some more competitive stuff. And then I
Hmm.
started YouTubing everything, and I would say, uh, if you played in high school, you're better than me. But like for the people that have not played actual organized volleyball, I'm fairly good. So,
Okay. Okay. Nice. What position do you get put into if you're doing like 6-on-6?
so I play outside. But
Nice.
if my setter is not very good, I just say middle, and I'll come to you.
Nice. I gotcha.
So sometimes I play with girls that set in college. They
Hmm.
make me look phenomenal. And then sometimes not. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna take a big approach here and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I gotcha. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, then, so I would go in college, I would go to put a free ball over the
Okay.
net and like the ball would go backwards. Like
Hmm.
I couldn't serve, I couldn't do anything. It just was so bad. And then I would come back and play grass volleyball and I was surrounded by uplifting, kind people.
Yeah.
And I was able to play again and I would fall back in love with it. And then I would go back for college and I would be like the starting outside. I would be the best player on the team. And then I would start riding the bench like a week
Damn it.
later. It's just like every year, it like every break I would have, it just was like a constant cycle. And so I graduated college. I was in Dallas. I didn't have a lot of connections to play volleyball in Dallas.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if I would have played it earlier or not. I remember after about a year right before I went back to Reno, I ended up checking out it was really cool, like, bar that they had where they ended up having like maybe like 8 sand courts all around.
That's a lot.
And yeah, it was such a nice facility. I
Yeah.
wish that we had it here. Um, you just go play sand volleyball, have some beer, have some food, hang out with
Yeah.
people. And I remember showing up and like they had this main court that the top players are playing at,
Right.
and like it, if you understand like volleyball, like people are very picky about like who can come to what because
Yeah.
it's if you want to be able to keep the ball alive and play, like people have to know how to play at that
Yeah.
level. And so ended up kind of like finally getting into one game and then everybody finally saw me play and then I was getting invited to more stuff.
Yeah.
But it took a little bit of work to get in there.
That does happen in the volleyball community. As soon as someone's like, "Oh, you're good.
Yeah,
Here's my number," and now 18 people will be calling you.
yeah, literally. Which like is a good and a bad thing. Like I wish that it was easier to be like just invite whoever wants to play, but like you have to put in your work
Right.
to be able to get there, you know? So
Hmm.
I respect it. Um and then I think for me it was more so working out
Okay.
after college cuz like the association of my muscles like burning when I worked out was so heavily triggered by like the emotions that I felt in college
Yeah.
that it like even to this day like I have a very hard time like I'll walk into the gym and then I'll just be like, man, just walk right back out because it's just it was such a miserable experience and like
Right.
I don't like feeling that miserable. Like if I don't have to do something, I don't want to be forced into doing it. Because as an athlete at that level, you get forced to do. You have no decision on what to do with your own life ever.
Yeah. So we're back at Reno. We're working for advertising um
Mhm.
company. Where do you feel like your mental health is at that point?
Um, it was great for so I worked for that company for 2 years. For the first year, it was awesome. I learned a lot. I was constantly feeling I basically filled a position that was requiring more experience than I had, which when I got hired, they were well aware of that, but they were
Yeah.
willing to teach me. So it was like a lot of growth in that first year. And then once I started to learn a lot more, I started to kind of advocate for myself a bit more. I wanted to be making more money considering like what my experience level was.
Yeah.
Um, and also in hindsight, like looking back at that moment, like I was within my rights to have asked for a lot more than I was making. Um, I think like it's really easy to give like kids who are right out of college like a really like cheap
Right.
salary. And so I ended up doing that for 2 years, and then I think I just pushed a little bit too much at the end of the 2 years of like asking, really pushing for a raise, and then pushing to work under somebody else because I didn't feel like I was, to put it in corporate terminology, I just wasn't necessarily connecting with my manager.
That
And
sounds very safe.
yeah, safe enough to get fired
Yeah.
then. So I ended up getting fired for my personality. That was rough.
When you get fired, do you have to write down why you get fired? And under subject line, they just put personality.
No, but like
That'd be brutal.
in the state of Nevada, I got to learn this in that moment. It's a right to work state.
Okay.
So you could get fired for any reason. Like they do not have to have a reason to let you go.
Oh, I
Um,
forgot that they had a funny name for it. Right to work. That's a
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like a right.
thanks.
It's just the right to fire. Like
Yeah.
that's what I should say. Yeah. So I just hopped on this call and I basically was like just greeted with my manager, his boss, and then our HR person, and they were like, "We're letting you go. This like after this call, the laptop's gonna turn off, and you need to send it back to us."
It's gonna explode in 10 seconds.
And I was like, they were like, "Do you have any questions before this call ends? Because like your laptop's gonna lock itself." And I was
Yeah.
like, I don't even like what just happened. I'm so confused. Like, can I have an explanation? Like, can
Yeah.
I get more information? And I basically was greeted with like, it's just not a personality fit, and that's it.
It's not you, it's me.
It was
Oh,
so confused. Like, I was like,
that's
can you like
wild.
give me like a list or like at least something that I could like maybe learn from? Like,
Yeah.
hey, like these are the things you needed to do better at. So we're gonna have to like something productive. That was a weird call. It was a weird experience.
So did you also go and celebrate with Big Mac after that, or
I celebrated with a beer.
there you go.
I actually, it was weird because it was like very startling, but I also think I really needed that. Like, I'm
Okay.
actually like really glad that I got fired because I think I was a bird that was like too big for the nest at that
Mhm.
point, and I was like too scared to fly out of the nest, so I really got booted out of the nest.
So what were you doing specifically for advertising? Because I feel like there's such that feels very encompassing. And I have another buddy of mine. He does advertising for a I think it's a corn manufacturer. So I'm like, what? Who are you?
Mhm.
What are you just going to farms? What are we doing here? Like he's
Yeah.
like, oh well, you look at who your customer is, you get the data, you look at the yield. I'm like. I know you're from Iowa, but this is wild. So
Yeah.
what were you doing as far as advertising?
Yeah. So when I was working for the agency, my position was an SEO and DMM specialist.
Okay,
So
I know the first one, search engine
okay.
optimization. Got it.
Yeah,
Let's go.
yeah, nice. And digital media marketer,
Okay.
I believe was what that stood for. There's a ton of acronyms in the advertising space. It's wild. Um, and so basically I did search engine optimization, which is like for anyone who doesn't know who's listening, if you have a website, you have this search engine. Google is like your largest one, but there's different search engines.
Yeah.
And you on your website, you communicate to them what kind of a customer you're trying to reach. And you have to find out what that customer is searching up because the search engine is trying to give the customers the best experience possible. So things like having having a website for a really long time, having a lot of people click on your website and stay there for a long time and click through multiple pages, having like the wording be like word for word what they would search. So you might like, you know how there's a lot of blogs on websites
Yep.
that like you're like, why does anyone even read these blogs? Those blogs are purely for the search engine, just to
Gotcha.
communicate to the search engine, this is the product that we offer. So
Okay.
you can capture all those clicks. Anyways, that's my like nerdy explanation of that. And then digital media marketing was like you have your organic side, which would be your SEO, so getting people naturally to your site,
Okay.
versus you can pay to put your ad in front of them to get them. So that's the other side of it.
Okay.
Um, so I would do like Google search ads and Facebook ads, stuff like that. So I basically got to learn a lot in the advertising space. And
I feel like if you're good at doing paid ads and you're getting a positive return on those paid ads, like that's a pretty good skill to have.
yes, I think the better skill to have is communicating is communicating like the worth of that to business owners.
Okay.
Because as a business owner, it's like you might not necessarily see an immediate like, hey, you gave me $200, but you only got $15 in return from someone buying something. But in reality, it's like, yeah, but you got a lot of brand awareness and
Yeah.
like this is now affecting it in this way. So that's been, I ended up doing freelance after I got fired. And that was a big part of like, there's a lot of conversations where you have to educate your clients and the business owners of like, this is why
Yeah.
you're paying me. And this is why you're not necessarily seeing a positive growth yet.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So when we go to freelancing, how do you find that gig?
So before I got fired, I was actually at a volleyball tournament, and I was sitting at this bar, and there was this man next to me, and we ended up having a conversation. He was it was a boys volleyball tournament.
Okay.
Uh, my boyfriend was coaching, so I was just down there with him. Anyways, we start talking, and he ended up talking about I forgot what it was. I think I started talking about work or something. Somehow the advertising got brought up. And him and his wife own a company called Love Her, which
Okay.
is a legging company.
A what
Um,
company?
a legging company. It's like women's athleisure.
Gotcha. I'm like leggings. Got it.
Like, yeah, pants. And so he was like, hey, like we really have been wanting someone to run ads for us. Like we're
Yeah.
currently running ads, but I'm the one doing it. And so I was like, I would love to do as much as I can, but I'm working full time. So
Good.
I'll do as much as I can. So on the call where I got fired, I was actually going to ask my boss, because you have to ask them permission to take on other work.
Okay.
Um, I was on that call to ask him permission to do some freelancing on the side for this other company, like 1 hour a week or something.
Permission granted.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually, after that call, I was driving my boyfriend, Logan, ended up driving me to a bar afterwards to get a drink. And it was honestly, it was kind of like a great day, because I was like, wow, I don't like owe anybody anything. Like I can do
Yeah.
whatever I want. I don't have to like respond to anybody. Um, and so on that drive to the bar, I called Jose, is the
Yeah.
co-owner's name. And I was like, hey, actually, I just got fired. So I can work full time. Like I can actually work a lot more hours, which I was like, should I be honest about this? And then
Right.
I just kind of am that way as a person. Like I really don't like lying to anybody. It just makes you really uncomfortable. And so I was like, whatever, I'll just be upfront about this. And he was very supportive. It was great. I think from the start, he's the type of person who kind of gets like, I guess you could say like the aura of a person and will like trust his gut. And I
Yeah.
think that he like could tell that I was a good person. I had a good personality.
Yeah.
And so yeah, ended up pulling, I forget exactly how many hours, but it covered what I lost from the other company.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, it was great.
Do you feel like the benefit that you bring to them, is it virality? Is it the just ability to hone in on who their customer is? Like, how do you best provide for them?
Yeah. So with a lot of small businesses, there's like a ton of fat on the meat. Like you have this successful pile of meat and they're doing their best. But like when you are a professional in the space of anything, I would
Yeah.
say there's so many opportunities to be like, hey, I think I implemented, there was a big shift, forget exactly what it was. I think it was kind of like an AI option in Facebook. It's called an ASC campaign.
Okay.
Um, but basically you can target people based on, yeah, how do I explain this? User privacy basically screwed over a bunch of advertisers because now we can't target people properly, which like I get why you would want that, but like also I'm like, whatever, just get ads that you actually want to see rather than just
Right.
random ads. So anyways, Facebook has your information. So I can tell Facebook, these are my customers. I want to target people like them.
Gotcha.
Um, and so Facebook will propagate that audience for you and your efficiencies skyrocket because of it.
That's
Because
fantastic.
yeah, so it's like something very easy on my end that I can implement that is
Yeah.
like that fat that I can cut off versus like once you get that implemented, then it's like you really get down to nitty gritty stuff where you're
Yeah.
not going to see as much of an increase. But yeah, so right away, once I hopped into things, I was able to do that. I ended up making them a new logo. I made them a new website. I loved doing it because they like trusted me and I could just do anything. Like I never had to ask permission. Like I
Yeah.
didn't even, I'm surprised that it went over well, but like I didn't ask permission to redo their website and
Yeah.
I just did it. And the Adriana, she's like the main like hands-on owner.
Right.
Um, she was like, I love this. This is amazing. This is beautiful. And I think I did a really good job with that website. But yeah, it was so much fun just to be
Yeah.
able to like see something that I want to do and I want to make and I just get to make it.
And that's pretty much where we are now, except for you also have started your own company.
Yeah. Yeah. So um working for Love Her showed me like I was able to sit down and see like what it means to create your own business and see how like achievable that is.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I actually really hate sitting down at a computer every day. Like I love advertising. I love helping small businesses. If I were to go a different route, I would want to do like freelance for small businesses because like the advertising world is scary as a small
Yeah.
business. And like if you can have someone come in and like help you, I would
How
love to
small
do
a business are we talking?
enough to
Podcast
do it.
needs a couple more views.
Oh, yeah, yeah, right. I'm always happy to help for free.
Perfect.
Uh, it just makes me happy to do it because I understand how it feels to be like I wish I had someone helping me with my taxes right now. I wish I had someone I could call up and be like, how do I do this? Like, please tell me for free. Like that'd be great.
Yeah.
Um, but so I ended up sitting down and be like, I want to create my own business. Like I want to be able to like, which is sorry, I'm like ranting right now, but
Oh, hey, I'm here for it.
okay. Something that is really, really cool about having your own business is like you create just like you create whatever you want. Like as long as I'm making money, I'm good. Like if I want to create a business where I hire someone and I'm like, you only work 3 days a week, I could do that if I
Yeah.
wanted, you know? And like even like going and setting up a booth at volleyball events. So I sell this apparel, right? Um, I was feeling so pressured to like make sure that I'm like, I can't play in these tournaments because I have to sit there and sell this apparel. And I'm like, screw that. This is my own company. And I'll just have a little sign that's like, I'm open, I'm closed. Like I can't sell anything right now because I'm playing volleyball or
I'm
whatever.
on court 12. Hold on.
Yeah, yeah. Like I'm sure there's going to be a more efficient way for me to like maybe pay someone to be there, but you know what? It's whatever I want to create. I don't have to. There's no book. There's no rules. I'm like you have to do this a certain way to be
Right.
successful. And I really really love that. Um but yeah, so I was like I want to create this business. I love volleyball. I want to be around it all the time. I love coaching volleyball. I love playing volleyball. I would love to be able to create my own brand,
Yeah.
just a business, like a brand, and a community from it. So I ended up thinking of the name, thinking of the word pursuing as this word that represents volleyball for me.
Okay.
Um, and so I ended up looking up the German word for that because I didn't want to name the company something that already was like an understood word that had a connotation to it. When
Okay.
you heard it initially, I wanted it to be able to create its own connotation.
I like that.
Um, and so I ended up looking the German definition or the German word for pursue is Verfolgen. And then the word Fōlgen means to follow.
Okay.
So I ended up going with Fōlgen because it's just two syllables and it's easier to remember.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so Fōlgen.
So when you have the idea of the company, is it we just want to have apparel because you like specific clothing lines, or you want apparel that's for a specific reason? Um,
So big picture, Fōlgen will be, I feel so weird like using that terminology. Just like you need to speak it into existence, like it's already there. But it will be a household name where there are volleyball shoes, volleyball jerseys, volleyball bags, whatever,
yeah.
just a volleyball company. And but right now I got some blank apparel, and then some prints, and I pressed them on this heat press that Love Her owned. I bought my
Oh,
own recently, but they let me use theirs. So I would actually do. I ended up getting another job. I currently work a 9 to 5.
okay.
I mean, digital marketing for another company, so that I have insurance and all that good stuff. But I was doing working for that company, and then I would do the freelance work for Love Her, and then at night I would press all of these hoodies,
Oh,
crew
we're
necks,
getting
and
after it.
we're getting after it. I was a little worker bee in there. Definitely got a lot of headaches because it was like this tiny room and there was like this buzzing sound from it.
Love it.
But and I started documenting the journey from the start, like I online on
Yeah.
social media. So now I've grown. I have a good following. I would love for it to be a lot bigger, but I've been growing my social media account to try to just like start wherever you can and use as many free resources as you can.
Yeah.
I also think it's like such a cool thing to be able to tell your story of this brand and have people join you from the start. Like
Yeah.
the hoodies and the crew necks are, I'm like, I'm not going to be making these again. Like this is an OG product. If
Yeah.
you want it, like I guarantee you 10 to 15 years from now, that's going to be such a special item because it's not going to be made again.
Yeah.
So
Do you do
anyway,
anything special on social media as far as because I your stuff pops up all the time,
nice.
and is
I
it
like
well, I do watch a lot of volleyball stuff, and your stuff
that.
always is in there. Is that specifics like because you talked about on Facebook that it targets certain things, but that was for paid things? How do you make sure that your volleyball stuff is kind of where it's at?
Like that my volleyball stuff is going to volleyball people.
I mean, that kind of just makes sense as I say it out loud, but I feel
No, I mean like I meant that as a genuine question.
well, I would
Um,
say there's a lot of volleyball accounts. Like
yeah.
there's a lot of instructional accounts. There's the one setter that has the fantastic hair that he's everywhere. But the I think he's still in high school.
Oh,
He's running.
Martini?
Yeah, he's running as with Timu now.
He is? I didn't know that.
Like that's fantastic. He pops up all the time, but like I always see your stuff and like the instructional ones sometimes go away, and maybe that's because I'm annoyed of seeing them. But uh,
Yeah.
it's always nice seeing your stuff pop up there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for telling me that it pops
Yep,
up. I love hearing that. That's what I want. I basically your social media platforms are very similar to it's just a search engine.
gotcha.
And it has a certain algorithm that goes into it that you as a account you communicate to it and then it decides who to show your stuff to. And depending on like how people interact with that, it will um, just give you certain views or not.
Yeah,
And it'll kind of keep like pivoting you. Something that is hard is like I am a girl, and so a lot of the stuff I consume is like more towards like what women want to see, and so
yeah,
then that's what I'm inspired to put out there, and
gotcha.
so I end up skewing towards women, and I really am like trying to. So like if my boyfriend Logan plays, if he has like an idea for a video, I'm like, yes, let's do that video because like that'll be the boys' audience, like that's what boys want to see. So it's definitely a big mix. Like I'm trying to lean into the storytelling aspect because I think that that's like a really good advertising way of going with advertising. But then there's this other side of it where it's like I am a company and I'm trying to sell products. But
Right.
then also, I don't know if you've seen any of the recent videos, but I've started putting this little end part to it that's like, buy your Fōlgen apparel with free shipping, blah, blah, blah. But like, personally, I hate doing that because
Yeah.
I hate when advertisers are intrusive. I
Mhm.
think that, which now I'm glad we're talking this through because I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do that. I don't know. But it's like I think that advertising should make like you should be drawn to that brand. You should
Yeah.
be like, wait, what's this thing? Let me look into it. And then you are interested in the brand, not that it's like, ooh, 50% off of this item. Buy it right now. Buy it right now. Buy it right now. Because we're constantly just like bombarded by stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I think that it's really important. I want Fōlgen to grow with very strong, not vines, what's below a plant, roots.
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 Sounds like
I want
vines grow. Vines grow.
I want Fulgen to have some really strong roots, and
Yeah.
I don't want it to just grow up really tall and really fast and really skinny. Like I
Yeah.
want it to be a very solid brand. And so, anyways, something that I have realized though about social media is that the amount of posts that you have out there matters.
Mhm.
There's kind of a mix of like your content uh, people should want to follow you because I've had stuff go viral and I don't gain any followers from it. And I've had stuff that doesn't go very viral and I'll gain five like followers who like comment on everything and
Yeah.
engage with everything because they've gotten to know me as a person. But so there's kind of a mix in there. But I think the amount of posts that you have out there matters because I was seeing these accounts that have like a ton of followers, and I'm like, how did they get there? Like, that's so frustrating. And then I look at the amount of posts that they've done, and
Yeah.
it's like two or three times as many as I have. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, it matters. Like, they probably were at a similar space than I was too.
Yeah. No, I mean, social media is a wild place. That's what my wife does full time. So I'm very happy.
Oh, nice. Yeah. She knows a lot then.
Well, I'm always like, hey, can you help me out with this? And she's like, yeah, yeah, you have to do the work. I'm like,
No.
can Emily do it for me? And she posts for me now, and it's very nice.
Nice. Yeah, it was
I'm
a lot of
I'm
work.
like I really enjoy talking to people. I will then afterwards talk to you about it and say this was fantastic, but ask me to post about it, and I will lose my. I'll just stare at my phone like, what do I say? And she's like, just act like you're talking to me. I'm like, Then I'm talking to you," and I have a very hard time with it.
Yeah,
But it's a wonderful place because it's free, and it, like you said, if people like your stuff, that they'll get in front of you.
yeah.
So if someone's going to follow you, where would they follow you at?
My social handle is Fōlgen VB. So Folgen. Folgen. Did I say that right? VB. um, and it should be that on TikTok and Instagram. And I kind of have a Facebook, but I'd more just let Facebook populate whatever comes from Instagram.
Yep.
Because that would just be a lot of work to post on all three platforms. But yeah,
So if they're buying any clothing from you, is that just from Instagram, from the website? Where would be the best place?
yes, yes, I need to focus on that part. I had a call with someone the other day, and they were like, "You're supposed to be selling things." It's like, yeah, you're right. It's FōlgenVB.com.
Okay, wonderful. And then we'll end with the last two questions that everybody gets.
Uh-huh.
What's your definition of health? Not necessarily the dictionary definition, but what is health to you?
I think it's more mental health and moving your body. It's not that you need to move 200 pounds on a back squat every morning. It's that like you should be able to like kneel down and pick up a box from the ground, and you should be able to process your emotions correctly without taking out emotions on other people so that you can just live on a day-to-day basis. I think it's more of like just a overarching like you should be happy in life, not that you need to be superior to, I don't know, other people with things, I guess.
Mm. The processing emotions one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think we should definitely work on those.
Yeah.
As far as what's something from your life that people listening to the podcast would be able to take away as a positive?
Mm, man. I feel like a big one recently was what we talked about before of like the body image and your metabolism slowing down. Like I think I'm turning 28 this year, and I think a lot of women and even men, I think that men have their own body image stuff. I think that we like it needs like to be talked about more. But if we were speaking specifically to women, just that like be kind to yourself, and that your metabolism used to be a lot faster than it is now, and that your brain is just now catching up with that. And so I just wish I'd recognized that sooner, or like been told that, because then it would have made more sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This episode is brought to you by Vital Athlete. And listen up, this could make a real difference. I've been using Vital Athlete Freeze Roll On for the last 6 months. I stopped using regular painkillers about 10 years ago because of the negative side effects on your liver and kidneys. Vital Athletes understands this. They've created a CBD roll-on specifically for pain and injury relief. Their Freeze Roll-On gives you fast-acting relief right where you need it, so you can keep going. If you care about getting the most out of every workout, then Vital Athlete is for you.